Good evening, dear friends. Also on behalf of all our co-workers, we wish you all a spiritual new year in which we will work together with great energy and joy to further spread the idea of universal brotherhood as a fact in nature. After the first talk on karma on 10 December and our study on the 17th of December, tonight we are going to try to show that the doctrine of karma is not a theoretical treatise, but that it is very practical and can inspire us in essential peace work. As usual, the talk is divided in 3 parts, and after each part there will be a short break during which you can ask your questions. In the first part, we will explore how wars come about and how it is possible for people to be involved in them. And this is much needed because we live in hard times, in times of much violence and war. People are opposing each other, fighting each other. The number of deaths in the war in Ukraine is uncountable, but because of the conflict between Israel and Palestine, it has disappeared from the front pages of the newspapers, where the terrible war in Sudan has never appeared. Well, that war is not inferior to the others in cruelty and human suffering. It is to become despondent. But there is positivity too. Worldwide, there are thousands of people out there who are fighting for peace. There are many peace organizations, and all those people are fed up with war and seek solutions. They are so shocked by the immense suffering, the cruel violence, by the countless death, the destroyed houses and roads, that they feel the inner urge to at least try to do something. Those people are our natural friends. Now, most of these peacemakers will not draw their inspiration from the doctrine of karma, the doctrine of cause and effect. And actually that's a pity, because it is precisely by thinking about karma and about the twin doctrine of reincarnation that you can be even more inspired in your peace work, and moreover, you can come to a wiser policy. A good understanding of karma can help us to establish peace and, most importantly, avoid war. For the best way to work toward peace is to avoid discord, to avoid violence and war. When people look for the causes of war, they often come across past political decisions. They look at geographical ambiguities, borders that have not clearly delineated. They look at differences in religion and cultures and nationalism. And of course, these things can lead to enmity and war. But what's often forgotten is that underlying all those phenomena are thoughts, or perhaps an overarching idea. Wars can be traced to one's own thoughts and actions. After all, how is it that people come to face each other as enemies? And the answer may surprise you, but it's through attraction that enmity arises. And attraction has everything to do with karma. In our last talk, we talk about the universal web of life, a vast living organism in which everything is interconnected. That great web of life, the web of destiny, and let's limit it to our solar system, which is already very large for us to grasp, although that solar system is merely one of the billions of systems in our galaxy. Well, that great web of life is made up of myriads of smaller webs, each of which in turn is made up of even smaller webs of life, and so on. And everything is attached to each other, belongs to each other, and everything, all living things, are related because they exert a mutual attraction on each other. They have a common characteristic and constantly attract each other, although they also, paradoxically, repel each other. But repulsion is actually also a kind of attraction. Let's try to clarify this at first sight strange idea with an example. Our planet, planet Earth, revolves around the Sun just like the other planets. And the Sun exerts a certain gravitational force on the Earth. So the Earth keeps revolving in its sphere. Yet the Earth does not fall on the Sun. So the Earth is attracted to the Sun, but there is also an opposite force, a repulsion. So you could say that gravity manifests itself in two forms, attraction and repulsion. We see something similar in magnetism. Every magnet has two poles, a north pole and a south pole, and the north pole attracts the south pole and repels another north pole, and the same goes for the south pole. Now, what is true in the field of physics is also true in the psychological or mental or even spiritual realm. There too is attraction, and that attraction expresses itself in two ways, one positive and one negative. And if we translate that into human language, we speak of sympathy and antipathy, or love and hate. So love and hate are binding forces which work exactly like attraction and repulsion in physics, as occurs, for example, in magnetism. It's through love and hate that people are attracted to each other or repelled by each other, but that repulsion, and this is often so difficult to understand, is equally an attraction. Hatred binds as well. Now, for such a radical position, it's not only necessary to look for an analogy in the material world, we should prove this for ourselves. Well, if you thoroughly examine our own thoughts and try to see objectively whether the people with whom we are surrounded are somehow sympathetic or antipathetic to us, with those people who are sympathetic to us, it will be easy to experience this, and so we find it natural to interact with them. At least we will never, I suppose, ask ourselves the question why we live with our beloved ones, with our children, our partner, or why exactly we have such good and kind and helpful neighbors. We think that's normal, don't we? But it's different with people we don't like, people we hate. No doubt you will say that you do not hate anybody. Hate is a very strong word, but maybe you don't like someone very much. You find him annoying, or whatever other words we will find to express a certain kind of antipathy. In fact, all those negative feelings and thoughts towards somebody you can call hatred. And perhaps it is sometimes in a somewhat lighter form, but it is negative attraction. No matter how you look at it, if you dislike somebody, or if you don't like somebody very much, there is a certain amount of attraction, a certain amount of attachment. You should find out for yourself towards which people you are completely neutral in life, which people evoke nothing in you, no negative or no positive feelings. If you check that for yourself, you may find that the people who surround you are not colorless to you. You have a certain connection with them, and they have to you. There is a relationship established from both sides. You should try to determine for yourself which people have made a great impression on you in the past. These are the people you liked and those you didn't like. Go through your own school days. Which teachers do you remember? Probably those you liked and of whom you thought they were good teachers, but you will also know the ones you didn't like, of whom you thought they were bad teachers, the ones who picked on you, or gave you lower grades than you deserved. But maybe there was also a teacher of French, of English, or math you don't remember at all. And when someone says his or her name, you think, oh yes, we had that one too. But you can't remember his face. And you really don't remember whether it was a good or bad teacher. You are neutral towards him or her, and therefore there is no bond, or at least the relationship is much less close than when you liked him or her a lot, or when you didn't like him or her at all. Check it out for yourself and you will discover that love and hate are binding forces. In the last talk we told you that every thought you think makes an impression in your consciousness. And when you love somebody, as well when you hate them, you think about that person, and this makes an impression in your consciousness. Moreover, by our attitude and our behavior, you will also leave an impression in the other person's consciousness. It's not so difficult to realize that the impression the other person makes of you is strongly related to how you think about them. The impression of the other person makes in their mind, of course, has everything to do with their character and how they react to certain things and people. But it's obvious that if you think negatively about them, that your thoughts must have some repercussions in the other person's consciousness. And so two webs of destiny, two human beings, become interconnected. They are interconnected in a positive way, on the basis of sympathy, and in a negative way, on the basis of antipathy. Now, let's take it a step further. It's not only people with whom we have a connection, but also the circumstances in which you live and in which you meet others. This applies to everything. People who like football are attracted to each other, just like people who are interested in music or in astronomy, or people who would like to know something more about karma. It was your common interest in the subject of karma, at least I assume so, which drew you to this lecture. And even if you have never met the people who are listening just like you entered into a relationship with each other. So, in this life, we choose our friends and our enemies of the future. Any form of hatred toward another feeds enmity. So if we gossip about another person, if we don't take them seriously as a human being, if we believe that they or their religion is inferior, or we feel superior to the other person, we are making an enemy of a fellow human being, an enemy of a brother, even if we never express that thought. And when we meet someone in the next life, we immediately feel resistance, an unpleasant feeling. We don't know where it comes from, but the cause can be traced to our own past hateful thoughts. Or if in the next life we end up in a family in which we feel we are the black sheep, then that is no coincidence or bad luck. We have chosen for it ourselves. And what is true for individuals is also true for groups, for countries. A group of people, a nation for example, can form a tie with another group of people, another nation, and they can do that on the basis of love and sympathy. And how beautiful is that? International cooperation. That is what our current world needs so much. But again, you can enter into a relationship with another country based on suspicion or resentment, and from a sense of superiority, hating the other, perhaps only because in the other country the dominant religion is a different one than that of your own country. And do you think that that connection ceased to exist when we die? Certainly not. Death is nothing more than a rest. And in the next life you are exactly that person again with his self-built attractions. When we talk about war, it didn't come about by chance. It's not that random people, young men, come face to face with the intention of killing the other. It's not without a cause that one country lives in rivalry or enmity with the neighboring country. Now, hatred comes from a distorted view a person has on life. One does not see the other as part of the grand web of life. Indeed, one does not see a grand web of life at all. Could somebody who has an image of the living organism that is the cosmos, even if only a vague and very limited image, could such a person hate another? I don't think so. He sees the other as part of himself, or at least he understands that the other's fortunes have everything to do with his own happiness. Through a wrong mindset on life and a wrong mindset on a human being, hatred arises. You no longer see the ties, the connectedness. You live in a sense of separation, believing that your own happiness and your own sense of meaning are separate from those of others. And when you add to that an over focus on desire, the focus on wanting possessions or luxuries or power, a toxic mix is created. You then see in others, at least those who do not belong to your little circle of life, to your country, to your religion, your family, you see in them a real threat to your happiness. You start hating the other, and without knowing it, you make the bond with that other person even closer. And the simple conclusion should be clear: we must stop hating. Not for nothing was the message of all the world teachers that we must love one another. Some call that unrealistic, metaphor whims. However, if you merely understand the working of karma, you know that this is the only solution to all the wars, all the atrocities that one human being inflicts on another. And if you find it very difficult to love the other, because there was so much violence and enmity in the past, at least try to adopt a neutral attitude. Every time a thought of hate, a feeling of irritation or resentment arises, and you are unable to convert it into a loving thought regarding somebody, think something neutral, or think a loving thought towards somebody you do love. Anything is better than hate and irritation, because those are the ingredients for war. This is easy to demonstrate in an individual case, but it applies equally to a country, a nation. Imagine someone who is constantly annoyed by another person. Everything the other does and fails to do is a source of annoyance. And of course, it affects his mood. The whole emotional nature bubbles and boils. If he has the impression that the other person is preventing him from satisfying his selfish desire, whatever they may be, then his emotions becomes more and more heated. At some point, his overheated constitution reaches an outburst. The pent-up irritation, unfulfilled desires and uncontrolled emotions break through and finds its way into the external physical realm. His body reacts, he gets an increased heart rate and his hands sweat. In a fit of rage, he steps to the person he hates to punch him. Now you can say that person, despite being irritated and angry, must learn to control himself, and because then that violence does not arise, and that would be very, very good, of course. But much better it would be if during such a long time he had not built up that mental image of irritation. There is accumulated karma here. Again and again, that same thought, again and again, that mental image of irritation. Again and again, a mental image of resentment, of hatred. Again and again, a comment to his partner or his colleagues about that man, and the bucket of irritation and emotion fills up drop after drop, and then something happens, the last drop, and the bucket overflows, and there is a physical conflict. Karma is the ultimate weapon for peace. This is the title of this talk. But only when karma is used for peace processes, because in itself karma is a neutral force that makes the consequence exactly match the cause. It's neither good nor evil per se. Well, in the case we sketch you, a case of someone coming to an act of violence by his own thoughts and emotions, unfortunately, this is a very realistic and very common case. Well, in this case, an arsenal of negative karma was built up. Every thought of hate was like ammunition that must one day be detonated. But if you know the laws of karma, then you also know that instead of those thoughts of hate, you can build up thoughts of compassion and love. And we mean impersonal love. And then you must first do something about your vision on life. Then you have to step out of your self-chosen isolation and learn to see that, having come all from the same source, we are indeed interconnected. We are all, any human being, a web of life, a web of destiny, part of a cosmic web. And every thought and action is like weaving our web of destiny. And if we manage to change our thoughts, to ennoble our thoughts, to grow in love and compassion, then we build another kind of karma. And of course, this will not make the past karma disappear. If during many lives you have fed up your thought realm with hatred, you do not change it in a Sunday afternoon, of course not. But you can start doing it. Every thought that is fed up with the awareness of oneness reduces the inner tension. The fire burning under the pressure cooker of emotion and desire is lowered. or even better, extinguished altogether. The danger of explosion is gone. And of course, the attraction to the other human being remains. As has been said, we have chosen our friends and enemies ourselves. But once we change our view on life, and thus the view on our fellow human being, hatred and enmity will disappear, and with that the danger of strife and violence. The attraction to that other person remains, but the relationship will be transformed. Foes will become friends. After the break, we will try to explain that what is true for an individual human being is also true for large groups of people, for countries, for nations and even continents. But first, there is a break, so ask your question. You can use the chat function or write us an email, and after the break I will try to answer those questions first and then go on with part 2. So see you in 3 minutes.